Hey, this is John Bartlett from Brentwood Growth. We're doing another episode of our buy or sell podcast, and I'm pleased to have with me Mike Blumenfeld from BZR Advisors. Mike, thank you so much for taking a few minutes this morning to share with us.
Thanks for having me, John. I'm excited to be here.
You're calling from Atlanta, right?
I am.
How's the weather in Atlanta? You got ice on the ground?
Today. Not today. We actually warmed up. We're like the rest of the Sun Belt. We're finally warming up after last week's ridiculous frigidness that we had to deal with.
Yeah,
we were over at the IRE show in San Antonio, and the wind chill was 12 degrees, which was not what anyone was expecting.
That's rough stuff.
Yeah.
So listen, thanks for taking a few minutes. Tell us quickly about your background and the firm and how the firm has come together and what it is that you guys are looking for.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So I'm with BZR Advisors. It stands for Blumenfeld and Ziminski. My partner is Jim Ziminski. Jim is very well known in the industry. He's been operating in home trades for 40 plus years. He started out as a window salesman, worked his way up to running a siding business, which he ran for the Crane family out of Columbus, Ohio. Ultimately sold that business to Georgia Gulf and worked there with that business for a couple of years, and then decided corporate America wasn't for him. So he went back to work for the Crane family in Columbus and ran their Able Mr. Roof business. Took it from about 100 million to 200 million under his leadership as CEO. Jim was looking for something else to do. And he happened to be speaking at Best of Success on how to sell your roofing business. He was trying to get some of that done as a consultant to the Crane family. But they weren't moving as quickly, or they didn't seem as passionate about doing acquisitions as Jim had hoped. So he and I actually met. I had been in the industry for 20 some odd years, working for various Wall Street firms and whatnot. Been on my own since 2013 as an independent buy and sell side advisory. Jim and I met at the show. We both were excited about doing something like this in roofing. I had a similar experience doing a buy and build strategy with private equity partners in the flooring and interior finishes business. We started that business in 2016 in December. My firm sourced a transaction with Floors Inc. and Malibu Floors out of Texas, which created the Artisan Design Group. We then went to work for them as a buy-side advisor for the next 4.5 years, did 23 transactions, and went from about 100 million top line to 2 billion over that time period. Jim was aware of what I had done at ADG, and we quickly determined that the two of us together would probably make a pretty good team and a partnership, because he knew a lot of the people in the space in the roofing world that I wanted to contact, and I had the deal background, and we marketed ourselves as a team to private equity, trying to find a partner that would support Jim's vision of what a buy and build strategy might look like, in this particular sector. We ultimately talked to about 12 different private equity firms, had 6 folks that wanted to work with us pretty strongly. We narrowed that process down, and we picked CCMP Growth Advisors out of New York City. Just so happened Jim had a long relationship with those guys. They had looked at his siding business when they took that to market. And he and the managing partner, Mark McFadden, had been trying to find a way to work together over that time. They would call each other once a year and say, hey, we're looking at this business. Do you think it might work? Would you like to be involved? And they couldn't find anything they both agreed on was worth pursuing until we got in front of them with this. We partnered with them in February of 2023, did our first acquisition in May of 2023. We've since done 11 total.
Oh, wow.
We did 8 last year. We're up to about 300 million plus top line is where we're
at. You guys are cranking.
Yeah, we are cranking, I hate to describe it that way because we're really selective.
Yeah.
We're doing a good job. It's Jim and I, but I will tell you, there are other platforms that have done more
Yeah.
over that time
Yeah.
frame. But their models are a little bit different than ours. We're really focused on cultural fits and people that are successful business owners, but are, have a continuous desire to learn from others and collaborate with others and kind of build something special together. Over the time we've done 11 transactions, we've probably turned down 10 times that many
Yeah. Yeah.
because they weren't fits with our model. And, there's 78 different private equity backed roofing platforms out there right now. So there's a model out there that probably fits everybody.
Yeah.
If you spend time looking to find it, or partnering up with somebody like yourself and your firm to help
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
kind of help these owners sift through that, all those different groups and find the one that fits the best based on what an individual business is looking for.
So there's 78 private equity backed platforms that are buying roofing companies, and that's interesting. Why has the roofing sector become of interest so strongly for institutional firms in the last 2 to 4 years?
Well, I think like anything in private equity, they generally like to do things that work.
Mm-hmm.
And, they look for industries that are fragmented.
Yeah.
If you look at roofing, depending whose number you look, there's ballpark around 60,000 independent roofers out there.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been a lot of consolidation.
Right.
So it's very fragmented industry. It's a need-based product in many instances where, you can't just say, gee, I'd love to have a new roof. It's,
Right.
hey, my roof's leaking, I need it.
Right.
So you have demand with that. You have so many different, portions of it that are attractive to different private equity firms. Some people want insurance paid business only with 1099 labor. Some people want residential retail only. There's all different kinds of things. But I think what really lit the sector on fire is you had, first off, you had the success of HVAC, which is kind of a similar type structure. You had our success in flooring, and then you had the first group that put together some kind of scale in roofing, had a successful turn of that business.
Right.
And everybody wakes up and notices that and says, well, if I can make money, most private equity firms try to make 3 to 5 times their money in 3 to 5 years,
Right.
which is a great return. And if they think they can do it in a sector like this, they'll all come after it pretty hard. When you look at roofing in general, you've seen all the manufacturers consolidate over the years. You've seen all the distribution companies consolidate over the years. It just hasn't happened at the contractor level. And a lot of that was, there was just not a lot of interest. They didn't think they could make money at it. They weren't sure who the buyers were going to be, all that sort of thing. And once people realized it was viable, they went after it with a vengeance. And I'm sure any individual owners that are listening to this, they get calls several times a week from guys like me, guys like you, guys like our partners in the private equity world, just trying to find, businesses that might be of interest to partner.
Right. And so you're focused more on the residential side as opposed to the commercial side. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
We focus on steep slope is what they call it in the roofing world, which is primarily, individual homes as well as multifamily. Everybody has different definitions for everything. We do some light commercial, but it's more typically steep slope. It might be churches. It might be, multifamily, like I said before. We have some guys that are in more rural geographic areas, so they have to do a little bit of more commercial because they might only have 60 to 100,000 residents in their primary geographic area. So to continue to grow, they need to look at some warehouse work or, things like that. But we're typically avoiding the big government bid work or the big builder bid work.
When you're looking at a business, what are some of the key characteristics that makes a business appealing to you guys? Talk to me about about the revenue mix. Talk to me about the infrastructure. Talk to me about the management team. Talk to me about the dependency that the business has on the owner. What makes a business attractive to you guys?
Great question. All of the above. There's a lot of that sort of thing. We start with the culture. That's number one for us. We want owners that want to take care of the people who helped them get there. As part of every transaction we do, we hand out options, performance shares to the key people of these organizations because we want them to become owners, and we want everybody that's a key portion of any one of our partners to have equity in the business and be partners with us, and we're going to make you owners. We are looking for growing businesses. We are not fixer-uppers. We're not operators. We're buying good brands. Now, these could be brands that have been around for 20 years. They could be brands that are around for 5 years, but have demonstrated ability to grow and grow successfully. Our model is a very diversified one. We are not pigeonholed into we only want retail guys that do no insurance work. We only want this. We are very diversified. We have a good balance of homeowner pay as well as insurance pay businesses. We have some light commercial. We are looking for, like I said, growing businesses that are typically growing at least 10% a year. Good brands in their market, good reviews, well thought of, provide a good customer experience, provide a good employee experience, and most importantly, people that want to continue to grow those businesses and work together. And also, ideally, we want the people that help build it to stay. It's not going to be a fit for everybody that's going to stay. You might have somebody that's, closer to my age that wants to retire. But as long as they built a good team, we're happy to talk to them and consider them. But more often, we want people that want to stay and continue to build this with us. And, it's funny, when Jim and I first got started, we thought we'd get a bunch of guys towards the end of their careers. And what we found is our model really resonates with some of these young guys. And our average owner of our group is about 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
So we have a really young, passionate, aggressive group of people that really want to help each other and help us grow this thing into something really special.
And are there, when you look at the revenue mix and you consider how much new construction there might be, how much climate storm work there might be, how much retail work, do you have limits or thresholds in terms of what those revenue components are?
We don't really have limits. We just want everybody to be majority roofing. Most private equity firms are still a little nervous about new construction and relying on single family new construction in particular. I have a lot of experience in that world because my flooring group was about 60% of that new construction. So I know how that model works. We're open to any of those things as long as the company is majority roofing. And we prefer, obviously majority residential roofing. We try to keep a good balance between storm and residential at retail so that, we don't want to be overly reliant on one portion of that. We really want to be diversified. We'll look at new construction. We're not going to rule people out if they do some new construction, but if somebody's 90% reliant on single family new construction, they're probably not going to be a prospect for us right now, depending on their size.
Got it.
So, if it's not a huge business and it's going to keep our single family exposure to a reasonable level, we'll consider it.
What about the infrastructure and the W-2 employees across the company itself? Do you have any strong parameters in terms of W-2s versus 1099s, either on the sales side or on the sub side out in the field?
Absolutely. So almost everybody uses 1099 labor in this space, and that, we're fine with that. That makes total sense. The bigger these platforms get, the more concerning having 1099 people who are more type employees than actually outside contractors. You see that a lot in the sales space with a lot of 1099 people. We generally try to convert most of those people over to retail, and that's part of our, when we're going through diligence, we figure out how many of those people we really need to convert, and we've done it before in a reasonable way, and we make sure that those people continue to be compensated about the same way they were pre-deal. They just get the added benefit of being a W-2 employee. This is a very fluid question these days because you don't know how things are going to change when you get new administrations that are more focused on other things. But I think in our mind, we'd rather have people that are, what you want to avoid is somebody has a sales guy and he only works for one contractor.
Right.
And he's always wearing that contractor swag. He doesn't have anything that references his company. He's really an employee, but he acts like a 1099 from a tax standpoint.
Right.
And those are the things you really want to avoid getting tangled up with, especially when you get to our size. You become a much bigger target. And people want to
what about size of companies that you're interested in, geographical locations of those companies?
Yeah. So right now we go as far in the Northeast as to Maine and as far in the Northwest as to Montana and South Dakota. And we have a business down in Georgia and over to Texas. And we've got guys up and down and in between. We are looking at white spaces on the map and markets. We're doing market analysis and figuring out where we want to go next. We're typically focused on the mid-Atlantic down, from New York down to Georgia on the Atlantic coast. We're looking at some businesses in the Hail Belt, but they're typically in areas where we just don't have anybody. And we have, a pretty good representation there. We're also very interested in finding people that fit for us in the Pacific Northwest. We tend to avoid markets that are a little bit hard and have some uncertainties to them. That would include places like California, Florida, Texas. Florida and Texas are big storm markets, very competitive, very difficult, and they're changing on a rapid basis. So we talk to folks down there. We just haven't found fits that are perfect for us in those.
What about size of companies?
Size, we really want somebody with at least 2 million of EBITDA. And I'm talking EBITDA that's actually been adjusted properly by experts like yourself who can make sure these guys are getting their costs and their revenue in the proper periods so that we know that the number is pretty close to what it's going to be. We ideally would want somebody with at least 3 million, but if it's a great company that's growing really well with a great ownership group and it's 2 million today, but they're probably going to be 2.5 or 3 by the end of the year, those are folks we still want to talk to and, make sure we're on their radar and they're on our radar. In the case they get to a point where they're ready and we're ready, we'll certainly start those conversations. Not, as you know, sometimes these deals take a while. And if a company's growing really well, sometimes the owner's not ready to sell because he thinks he's going to have another big growth year, and they want to own that themselves.
One of the things that we've run into occasionally in the roofing space is a lot of these guys run their financials on a cash basis, and then when it comes time to bring a deal to market, as you pointed out, we've got to convert that, or the conversion needs to take place from a cash basis to an accrual basis to be sure that all the revenue and all the expenses are being lined up properly. Would you encourage a seller to have that accrual or modified accrual process done prior to you guys taking a look at it? Or do you think sometimes it's better to wait and that conversion is going to get done when we get into the due diligence, the quality of earnings? Do you have a point of view on that?
Honestly, I've seen it both. We've done it every which way.
Right.
Moving to accrual is the preferred way.
Right.
The least amount of work we can do,
Right.
is better for everybody. But like if you guys do a sell side Q of E and take it all the way through there,
Right.
that creates something to compare to. We're still going to do our
You're
own
going to do
anyway,
yours anyway.
and compared to what you've done. But I think it gives the owner, when you're thinking about selling your business, moving to an accrual based system is going to happen eventually at some point anyway. And I think it's less surprising for the individual sellers when they do it up front and they get a good idea of how that affects their numbers.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these guys who think, oh, I had a monster year. They put up a big EBITDA number and they did it because they realized costs the previous year and they didn't pull them forward and match them up.
Right.
So they realized all the revenue is pure net income, which really isn't. So
Right.
I think the biggest struggle we all face who are doing M&A in this business, and I'm sure you see it a lot as well, is making sure that the sellers understand what the true earnings power of the business is and what the buyers are going to believe it is, so that they're not adversely surprised when we're going through the process.
You don't want there to be a shock when we go through the quality of earnings after an LOI has been accepted and we think the EBITDA is a certain number, and when we go through the Q of E, we realize that it's a number half of that, and so everyone's expectations get sort of blown out of the water.
Right. And if they don't have a trusted advisor like you to talk to about that, it really creates some uncertainty in their mind, and well, my CPA who does my taxes thinks it's this.
Right.
And that's the other thing that I would encourage people to do is, if you're going to get involved with this, they need to hook up with somebody like yourself that, really knows what's going on and can help guide them to the right accounting methodology, so that you don't have that surprise, but at the least find a financial advisor who can help you understand why that occurs.
Yeah. I want to go back to a point that you made a couple of moments ago. When you guys decided to do this, you thought the majority of your partner sellers were going to be guys in their 60s that are, in the later innings of their career. And you've been surprised to find that a lot of the guys that you've partnered with have been younger guys in their 40s that have wanted to be part of your platform. Why do you think that is?
I really think it's the way our model resonates with some of these guys, and because they've seen it, in distribution and seen how lucrative it can be. SRS has created 500 millionaires in 16 years. They got forklift guys that have made tons of money. And these guys see it, and a lot of them, particularly the guys we look for, they're so collaborative and they want to reward the people that help them get there. And they really want to change those people's lives. And a lot of people lip service that. These guys actually live it. And they just feel that they know what they know and they know what they don't know. And they think if they partner with us and partner with other different businesses around the country, all who are successful, because they're willing to learn, because they're willing to gain that knowledge from other people, and they don't think, hey, my way is the only way to do it. I've been really successful doing this.
Right.
They get in a room with these people. These guys love spending time together. We're going to be at a major manufacturer's location tomorrow, doing our quarterly meeting that we have called our Legacy Builders Council. It's all about these guys leaving their legacy and building a legacy in roofing. And they all see it going on, and they say, well, not only do I want to do this, but I want to get with the right group so that we end up being one of the winners and can look back and say, wow, we built $1 billion business together, and look at all these great partners we have.
Right. Let's talk about deal structure. So let's say you found a business he's doing 10 million of top line or 12 million of top line. Let's say his EBITDA is 2, and let's say from a valuation standpoint, to keep the math easy, let's say the business is worth 10 million. Everybody agrees to that. Mm-hmm. And, let's say it's a 45-year-old, 50-year-old guy that's willing to roll some equity and stick around. How would you look at potentially structuring that deal? What's the cash component roughly? What's the earnout component? What does that look like? What's the rollover equity piece?
We design all our deals individually. Mm-hmm. We don't have a cookie cutter approach to anything we do. Mm-hmm. And we design them based on the needs and wants of the sellers, mm-hmm. so that we design a structure that works mm-hmm. for them and mm-hmm. works for us. Mm-hmm. I've done a zillion deals in my career, just as you have, and it's really focusing on what those guys are looking for. If it's a 60-year-old guy that's looking to leave, right, or whatever, well, the cash component's going to be the most important part of that. Mm-hmm. But I think, we require a minimum rollover of at least 25% of the proceeds that we give somebody, mm-hmm. Because we want everybody to be a shareholder. We have one class of stock that mm-hmm. all of us own. Jim and I, as mm-hmm. part of our deal of being buy-side advisors, we put 25% of everything we make on a deal into stock. Mm-hmm. That was one of our asks when mm-hmm. we were doing our little, search for partners. Mm-hmm. We also both struck personal checks to buy in further because right. we know that's where a great portion of the money is made when you're successful in private equity. It doesn't always happen in every location, in every place. But in your example, that guy's probably going to want as much money as he can get up front, the least amount of roll that he can do, unless he truly believes in us and what we're doing. We do have some guys that have done even more than that and, mm-hmm. Kind of moved into a retirement type of role or working with us mm-hmm. in Omnia. We'll bring some folks over. And that's the beauty of this. It provides, when you build something of the scale we're doing, it opens up opportunities for everybody that wants to do something different. Maybe you want to move geographic locations. Maybe you're really good at one specific job, and we want to take that expertise and share it with the entire company, and don't want to have to take you out of a very important role in a local branch. We'd rather have you share what you're doing with everybody and go around and do that. And we've had 4 or 5 people do that already.
And if a seller, going back to the example, it's a $10 million valuation. They're getting a check for 7.5. They're rolling 2.5, 3 over, leaving that in the company. From a seller's expectation standpoint, what's the length of time that rollover equity is going to be maintained in the business? And then what's the ultimate exit of that? And what sort of valuation expectations do you think they should have on what that rollover could potentially be worth in 3 to 5 years, let's say?
Fantastic question. So this is the kind of thing. We have been partnered with CCMP for almost 2 years to the day. They like to hold businesses for 3 to 5 years, mm-hmm. and they hope to make 3 to 5 times their money while they're holding those businesses.
Got it.
And that's a common thing we hear from private equity firms. Some of them hold them long. It really depends on the success of the business, things you do. Our goal, because we had done this before and done it successfully before, even though we built a $2 billion business in flooring, we made a lot of mistakes along the way and things right. that we could do better. And so our goal was to make sure we knock those things out and not repeat them when we right. go to market this time. So right now we have the things that we need to do for integration is we need to integrate CRMs mm-hmm. and we need to integrate ERP or accounting systems. Mm-hmm. And we want everybody on the same platform of all those things so that we can really look at the business and all the time, mm-hmm. Without having to have people send things to us.
Yeah, in real time.
We want them fully integrated. We will be rolling out a CRM to 9 of our partner companies starting next month, and we hope to be done with that by May. Mm-hmm. We will start rolling out the ERP at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. We want all those people, literally on the same platform. We think that's very important. Timing wise, you asked about timing. We feel we can go from LOI signing to close in 60 days. That's generally, 6 to 10 weeks is how it usually works out in most transactions when people have their data readily available.
Right.
When somebody's using a firm like yours, it's an easy target to hit because you've accumulated a lot of that stuff up front because you're running a process and you know what people are going to ask for. When we're dealing with prospects that haven't done that, we help them bring that stuff together. The more organized they are, the faster we can go. Ideally, we want to do it as quickly as possible because we want to avoid any fluctuations in the business that might give either of us concern one way or the other.
Okay, so the offer's accepted. We get through the quality of earnings. We get through the diligence. We get through the legal stuff. We get the deal closed. Okay, how does the owner's life change the next day? What does his life look like, and what's different from his life that it looked like for the previous 5 years, 10 years, 20 years that he had sort of run his business on his own?
Yeah, and remind me, I left off part of the last question you asked about the equity. So let me hit that first, and then I'll do the owner life.
Okay.
So our minimum reinvestment is 25%. As you grow these businesses, the stock changes valuation and whatnot.
Right.
We feel everybody that signs up with us now, if we have a successful turn, which will likely happen in, maybe 27, 26, 27 is the 3 to 5 year kind of window for CCMP. If they make their desired return, anybody that puts equity in with us today should hopefully get that back within 3 to 5 years, and they should make 2 to 4 times their money on that based on where we are today.
So it's possible that second check that they get is a significant check that, when combined with the first check that they got, creates a great overall return.
Absolutely. And that's where our model kind of differs from a lot of our competitors. We tell people up front, we plan to do this every 3 to 5 years. We want a second bite, a third bite, a fourth bite. We've built an entire organization that can move forward. So if we do all this integration properly, the partners that will look to be our next partners will be bigger private equity firms with more capital, but that really want to just keep the model going and just inject more cash into it and help us buy bigger and bigger companies to become partners with us that fit what we're looking to do.
Perfect.
Okay. So now when we're talking about changing lives.
Yeah.
To get to that. So realistically, what we try to do is take the things off an owner's plate that they don't like dealing with, whether that's human resources, accounting, bonding, all those types of things that take up a lot of time, but generally don't help the business grow or help you acquire more customers or help you solve customer problems or whatever it might be. So what we find is a lot of people get really excited when they suddenly have a lot more time to grow their business, but they also now have less risk as they grow their business because they're doing it on our nickel and not out of their own personal net worth. Saying, you get guys that build a great business, they've kind of gotten to that point, and like your 65-year-old owner might be sitting there saying, I don't want to grow, or he said, I'd love to go to a new market, but I don't want to spend $1 million to try to make that market work out of my money.
Yeah.
But if he comes to us and says, we want you to go there, and if he's got a good plan, we're going to want to go on. Most of the things we prefer to keep as similar as they've been. We don't want employees to do different jobs. We don't want them to make any different money. There might be a different name on the paycheck, but the way they get paid, the job they do, all of that should not be affected by partnering with us in any way, unless we are pursuing new avenues of business, new avenues of customers, whatever it might be, that sort of thing.
How does the owner's life change? He's been doing his own thing for years and years and years,
Yeah.
and he's not had to answer to anyone. I mean, he has a management team, and he needs to hold himself accountable. But all of a sudden, he's got a partner, and you guys are going to have certain requirements that you're going to want him to adhere to, and there are going to be reports, and there's going to be some accountability in there. So how do these owners sort of partners now with you? How do they sort of factor through maybe losing some of that independence that they valued so much for a period of time?
Well, if they're the right fit for our culture, it's not going to be an issue at all.
Right.
The ones that usually have trouble with it are people that are, it's my way or the highway kind of people, and my way is the right way of doing everything. And those are not usually good fits for us.
Right.
I think the only reason this works really well is if a business can grow further and faster with us than they could independently. And we tell people right off if we think we can help them and how we can help them. And then we talk to them about what they have that can help us. Like when we're doing we sign an LOI, we collect a bunch of data, and then we go visit with these folks. And we bring our whole deal team. We have, people from our C-suite of the operating company. We have our private equity partners. We have Jim and myself. Jim is also chairman of the board of Omnia. So we all sit down and we learn this business. We spend, 6 hours discussing the ins and outs of the business. We have a meal together the night before, get to know each other socially. And after we've spent, at that point, everybody's known of the business and spent some time looking at it. And we're really digging in to learn as much as we can. And at the end of that meeting, we go around the room and everybody says, okay, this is what I think Omnia can bring to XYZ company. And this is what we think XYZ company can help us with and how we can do this together. And that's really when it gets exciting. And what's really been fun for us to see is like we have a great retail business on the East Coast that has great processes. They do no insurance work whatsoever. We have a storm business in Montana, in Bozeman, Montana, that did more storm work and didn't do a lot of resi replacement retail kind of stuff. And a couple of the key people in the Montana business, without even us knowing, like they had just went over and spent a week with our East Coast folks and
that's wonderful.
Learn how they do it. And, because one of the commitments they made to us is we want to do more residential retail.
Right.
And so, we want to be able to know how to do that properly.
Everybody becomes a team where they're trying to help one another grow and be successful because everyone benefits from that.
Exactly. And that's why we have these quarterly meetings.
Yeah. The
owner's going to talk to our key people, but we have, digital marketing expertise. We have technology expertise. There's not just a couple of people that are going to roll them into this new CRM. We've hired, high paid consultants to make sure this goes very smoothly and that it's not disruptive to their businesses. But we have guys that'll sit down with them and say, let's analyze what your media spend is. And let's talk about what your returns have been on that and why this particular avenue works really well in this geographic area or this sector of the market you're in versus others. And you might be not spending money in a good place, things that private equity is good at. We have a great HR department. The benefits are going to change for the better virtually in every company we buy. Yeah. And if they don't change for the better, we make sure nobody goes backwards. If somebody's built a great benefits program and it's as good as ours is, then, we just want to enhance that to make it better. But we're not going to make it in a place where anybody goes backwards and loses things because they don't.
And that's great. And thank you for that. So if there's some owners that are thinking about beginning a conversation like this, what are the things that you would encourage them to have clear in their head where they can think through, are they ready to have this conversation? Where do they need to be mentally, emotionally spiritually, whatever it is, where okay, I think I'm ready to have this conversation.
Yeah. I think realistically, owners need to understand that this is not an easy process.
Right.
The fun part is marketing your business and having a lot of people court you and tell you how
Yeah.
great you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
The hard part begins the minute you sign that LOI, because
Right.
diligence requires a lot of an assistance. And
Right.
having, I think you need to have a well experienced legal M&A person.
Yeah.
It's not your business lawyer or your family lawyer who's done your will. It needs
Yeah.
to be somebody that does M&A for a living. If you have an accounting team, doing some of the conversion to accrual that we talked about would be
Yeah.
a good start. Partnering with somebody like yourself or any other, what accounting people that know M&A, that know what a quality of earnings is, that knows what's going to happen to these folks. And the more of that stuff you can accumulate to begin with, all your contracts you've ever signed, we're going to want to look at everything. We're going to want to look at, and really determine what your business looks like today and how you would grow it if money were no object.
Right. Right.
So you have a story put together of, this is how we got here. This is where we think we can go. This is why we're looking for a partnership. And I think being transparent is the best way. If you're 65 years old and you're looking for the biggest check and want to retire, great. Let us know that.
Right.
And, we'll either design a deal that fits that. But I think, and really talk to the people in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your distribution reps, talk to your manufacturing reps, talk to people. This is happening all over the place. There's not a single conference you can go to where somebody's not talking about private equity and roofing and what they're doing, but talk to people you trust. Talk to your distribution rep. Hey, do you deal with any of these PE-backed companies? How's it been since they purchased somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to the people that have done these deals. And really, there's a model that'll probably fit anybody out there of what they want to do, but find the one that fits best for you. Because the biggest problem that a lot of people run into when they do this is if they partner with the wrong person.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much money you get. If you hate going back to work the next day because you don't like who you partnered with, or you don't like the way they're kind of helping you run your business or running your business. And in many cases, it's no fun for anybody. And It doesn't matter how much money you've made. If your employees are leaving because they're disheartened, if they're basically destroying this great thing that you've built and your life's work in many cases, it's very disheartening to see somebody change it in a way that doesn't make you happy.
Great.
And
so let's say that there are some folks that are listening to this, and their business is not quite at the size where it would be appropriate for someone like your group to take a look at. They've got a smaller business. Let's say it's doing, $4 million of top line, and its EBITDA is, 800,000, and they're putting the pieces in place to continue to grow and scale the business so that they can have a conversation like this with guys like you. What are the things that you would encourage sort of that smaller roofing owner out there to really focus on as he's growing and scaling his business to get ready for a conversation like this?
Talk to as many people as you can that have done it and learn from them. What I found in roofing is people are very helpful to one another.
Mm-hmm.
They're people that give freely of their time. Brandon Kowalski's a great example. He runs Brandon J. Roofing in St. Louis. He did a deal with us. He speaks. He does a podcast. He does a number of things where he's trying to help people. He did one last week, and he talked all about his partnership with us and partnership in private equity in general and how it's affected him and what he looks for. Join best practices groups.
Right.
The Exterior Contractors Alliance, which is part of the FEI group, is another great group where all our guys become members of that group because we still think it has great value. Even though we do best practices internally with our members, we still have everybody that partners with us. If they're not part of ECA, we have them join it. They go to these conferences that ECA puts on. They're fabulous, great learning experiences. You network with your peers. You figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you're trying to do to grow. I think what you find, a lot of people can grow good roofing businesses and get to that $10 million mark. It's the 10 to 20 that really requires a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of forethought and a lot of skill to get to that next level. And how many people did you hire? When did you hire them? Where did you hire them? How do you pay your people? How have you changed? And I've seen people do it. I've looked at so many different models. There's, 100 different ways to be successful in this sector. You just have to find the one that you're good at, the one you enjoy doing, the one that fits best for you. And I have no doubt that you'll find a partner that wants to partner with you that does because of the way you're doing it.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. Is there any parting words of wisdom that you would share with the group?
The main thing I would encourage everyone to do is, if you're going down this route and you're talking to a bunch of different potential partners, get a list of everybody they've done a deal with in the space. And if it's a private equity firm, ask them for a list of people they've done deals in other sectors, and get to know who your partners are.
Right.
And make sure you talk to people that have done it. We give out a full list of all our members' names to anybody that asks for it, that wants to do a deal with us, and encourage them to call every one of them and ask them how their experience was. Did we do what we say? If you go look, roofing contractor did a profile on Jim Ziminski 2 years ago when we were just starting. We hadn't done a deal yet, or we had just done Hoffman Weber. It was right when we started. And he talks about what we want to do and how we want to do it. And the most enjoyable thing we've done recently is we went back and went over that article and basically said we did everything we said we would.
Right.
We're well on our way. But make sure you do the work on your end, or get people like John to help you do this work, so that you evaluate who you're partnering with, because there are a lot of things that make this really good, but a lot of mistakes can make it very unenjoyable.
Well, those are great thoughts, and I thank you so much for your time. We'll be sure and put your contact details in the show notes here, and if someone wants to reach out to you directly to talk about their business, that's awesome. And
that's great. We would
Mike,
love that.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Have a great week, man.
Thank you, John. You have a great week as well.
Okay, talk soon, man.
Appreciate having me on.
Cheers.